Welcome to the NBA Coast to Coast podcast brought to you by thelines.com. Coming to you from the West Coast, Josh Lander, joined as always by Nate Weitzer on the East Coast. And it's Friday, and we've got 6 games in the NBA. And in this one, we're taking a look at Portland and Philly. Portland is in Philadelphia for this one. Actually, a pretty healthy Blazers team compared to what they've been. Full discrepancy, we are recording this the night before. So it is 8.5 right now with a total of 229. But I'll let Nate get into the rest of that slate here in just a minute. We also got another game video and our player props for you. So make sure to like and subscribe and continue to follow along with us. Also head to thelines.com. That's where you can check out all the great written content we have as the NBA is in full swing up on the site right now. Also have our player props up for you in a video and on the site as well. And we are using that odds finder tool up there. Make sure you're getting the best odds available on all those bets you're making across the NBA this season. Nate, let's go ahead and get into this slate for everyone real quick and then talk about the Blazers and the Sixers.
Yeah, a lot of pick'em lines here as we open because, teams are pretty inconsistent right now. But we got Hawks in a pick'em at Washington right after beating them by 2 points 2 nights prior. Blazers have the biggest spread, I guess, here, +9 at Philly. Totals opened at 229. Excuse me, not the biggest because the Spurs, who have lost, 26 of 30 games, are +12 at home against Denver. Cavs in a pick'em at Miami. That's an immediate rematch as well. Cavs just won a low-scoring bout over them. The Nets, after posting one of the weirdest rotations I have seen in a close loss to the Bucks, are +5 here on a back-to-back in Minnesota. They should get Dinwiddie and Cam Johnson back for that one. And then another pick'em, Raptors at Lakers, 224 total. And we'll talk about that one in another episode. Here, I mean, these are two teams that are definitely going in opposite directions in the Blazers and Sixers. It doesn't take a lot of analysis to look at that. I mean, the Sixers, the thing is, they just kind of do just enough, typically. I mean, on the road recently, they've definitely done just enough. They do have the potential to just completely blow doors off a team at home. But generally what we've seen is just they score at an incredibly high rate, and they don't stop high-scoring guards on the other end. I mean, it's just the MO of a Harden Maxey team. But I mean, this is Embiid's team, of course, and extra rest here, 2 days rest, which is the biggest situation to look at for me. That I trust them a little bit more with that extra rest. It's just a question of how much are they going to pace themselves because it is so much of a two-man game with Harden and Embiid. In general, though, they are higher scoring on extra rest, 11-7 to the over with the rest advantage, going over by 5 points per game when they get 2 days off, going under by 7 points per game if it's a back-to-back, and they've gone under 70% of the time in those situations. So that tells you what they do with that extra rest, which is just, a fresher Joel Embiid who's constantly in danger of missing a game with a sore foot, basically. So if he can get a little bit of that time to come out and attack one of the worst defenses in the league, if not the worst in the last 20 games. Portland just got Nurkic back. He only managed 17 minutes and didn't really make a dent against Boston. Boston team that got right in this very same matchup. The Phillies looking to exploit. The last time Nurk faced Embiid, he could only play 24 minutes. He got into foul trouble. He had 4 points. Embiid had 32. Harden, triple-double. Harden, by the way, has 48 assists in his last 3 against Portland. Each one has come on a different team. So it doesn't really matter who he's rolling with. He knows how to dice up this team, which, used to have pretty good wing defenders in the last few years. And like we keep pointing out, they just traded them away. No Josh Hart, no Gary Payton II anymore. And Simon's being injured means, you're leaning on Cam Reddish. He let me down with player props there in Boston. He's now been discarded twice by teams that need someone at his position, and they just had no real interest in him. So it's fair to wonder how much of a vital piece he's going to be going forward. But
you can say it. The Knicks discarded him. Then he must not be that good. You could say it.
Yes, that is the team in question. The Knicks, when they were at their absolute lowest low in terms of offense last year, and they still were like, yeah, we don't have any use for Cam Reddish, but
we're good.
So it's the Sixers against a Western Conference team, though, and that is something where we tend to see a ton of points, usually when they're at a Western Conference team. But they should be able to get over their team total here, considering
Yeah.
Portland's on this exhausting road trip. They opened the All-Star break with some sort of extra travel snafu, and they haven't really recovered, and they've only been able to beat really bad teams on this road trip. But losing by double digits to Boston and Dame Lillard, I'll talk about him in player props. As great as he is right now, and I think he will be a volume scorer, there's only so much you can do when the other defense can just load up on you, and there's absolutely no one for him to kick it out to and no one else to really make plays. It's a real problem in terms of being able to compete here. So I don't really trust Philly to win by 9. I know I'm always talking about teasers. This is a good teaser spot, though, to get it down to 4.5 or 5 and take the over, which I think we like either way. So maybe you just want money line and over with those Sixers.
Yeah, I ain't mad at you. I don't feel the tease is totally wrong here, and I agree with a lot of what you said there. And I'm a little bit more focused on Philly in this one and the trends that they pose for us in this game. You talk about they're good. They've been going over on the road against the West. Well, really, they've just been going over against the West, actually. In their last 10, they've got their 8-2 to the over against the West, regardless of venue. 120 points a game in that span, and allowing 113. Winning by a good margin there, not enough to get us over 8.5 points, but good enough to get us over 229 for a total, which it's somewhat fair. But I do think that that if they get to the 120 or so, that I think that they should, and that's probably what their team total is going to be at in this one. If you look at that total, right, they're 8.5. It's going to be about 120 to 111.5, whatever you want to call it, for what their team total will be when it comes out. Like I said at the top of this video, we're recording early enough on a Thursday night, actually, that we don't have all of the bets in front of us necessarily yet. But that's what I'm focused on. They're 16-9 to the over against the West on the season. Like I told you, 8-2 at home, and against the West in those games, those 10 games at home, 15 made threes on 42%. Really, really good, obviously. And then 26 free throw attempts, which is actually kind of low for them, and 28 assists per game, which is actually up for them on the amount of assisted buckets that they're getting there. So I do like what they're doing there. I think if you look at the trends for their last 5 at home, against teams that are not Miami, by the way, because one of them is Miami in there. They had a back-to-back against them that I don't want to talk about. And the Celtics was in there as well. And those games are always tough. I mean, they've had some high-scoring affairs, I know, in the past between those two teams, but they've also had plenty of like knock them down kind of games where, they're just trapping each other all over the place and stopping what the other one does pretty well. So in sort of an Eastern Conference style game. So either way, my main point, though, is, in 3 of 5 versus the East, they still go under. They went under in those, but they went over in the ones against the West once again. And it was around a 223 total in those home games, but that was also a bit before. Like, I think the road trip did open something up for them where you saw them play at a style and a pace of the teams that they were playing against. And part of the problem was they just hemorrhaged points to point guards. I know they beat up the Timberwolves the other night, which was actually a little bit shocking how badly they beat them and only allowing 94 points to the T-Wolves at home, who had been rolling pretty well. But Ant Edwards still got us over our props that we picked him on at 32 points, 1 assist, but whatever, we still got over the points and assists as well because of all the points he scored, because that's where they're just giving up points, and that's what causes them to also play at that fast pace as well. There's almost been like a weird, like, James Harden taking it personally that the other team's guards are scoring, even though he doesn't take it personally enough to play defense. He just takes it personally enough to play harder on offense and play a little bit better and get you those points as well. So, I think Philly's not really, their defense has been pretty good against a 3, but that's where, the Blazers are going to shoot and get all their points from deep. Philly's actually allowing the 3rd most 3-pointers made and at a 41% clip over their last 5. So they are letting teams get hot from deep because, once again, the guys are creating their own shot and scoring from 3, like Ant did the other night on a couple of unassisted 3s. So also giving up a ton of free throws is Philly, and scoring off free throws, unsurprisingly. So I think there's going to be opportunity for a lot of points in that sense. And Dame will go off, and then that'll sort of propel everything, we hope.
Yeah, the thing is, though, it's a situation where you can let Dame go off. It's the old, like, Steve Nash in the playoffs situation, right, where you let him get 50, whatever. Nobody else is going to beat us. And that's the way they've guarded him in his last 6 meetings here. He's got 33 points per game on huge usage, but 5 turnovers to 8.5 assists, being like, okay, nobody else is going to be open. He's a -4 overall, and I mean, even in this tear he's been on over the last 2 months, he's a -9 because it's the only offense Portland can muster. They have no defense besides his individual defense has struggled because he's so exhausted from offense. And Philly can just come at you in waves now with these other guards. So maybe I am talking myself into -9 here. I mean, Portland is soon going to be playing for ping pong balls, and it's just Dame, kind of shouting into the wind that I want to be competitive, and there's just nobody else on this roster to help him do so.
No, they're like, okay, cool, we got you. Here's Cam Reddish, and he's like, thanks. What about Josh Hart, who's helping the Knicks to a 9-1 start as he got there, the first games in a row? But yeah, I would say the game theory that I feel like you're talking about, though, which I would agree with, is like, if Dame goes off, fine, whatever, sans that, or even regardless of that, if they don't hang, the reason this wouldn't go over is because Portland doesn't hang around, because Philly's going to get what they want, right? And how they want it on offense. So with that in mind, like, if Portland doesn't come along for the ride and it goes under, they're probably not covering 8.5 points either, right? At that point. Yeah. So tease is fine, I would say, because I do like the idea of getting it down a bunch, but like that Minnesota game is still sort of like fresh in my mind, where they only scored 94 points against this team despite Ant going for 32, which is something that you feel like could be a similar case here. And so either way, like, maybe it's more of a Philly team total on this one once that comes out, which we also love to hit when we feel much more confident in one team than the other. And the 8.5 doesn't really scare me in this situation, except for that Philly sometimes does sort of stumble along and only win by these games by like 5. See the game against the Pacers the other night. So do with that what you will. I think there's a number of ways to bet it based on all that stuff that we think is going to happen in this game Friday night. So,
and then the Raptors are slight underdogs here, +1. Although you can get the Lakers as underdogs some places, and it's a 224 total. You definitely got to lean under right now for the Anthony Davis Lakers. The pace is completely different. I mean, they were trending towards an under team, which we've talked about for a while, but since Bron went down, the pace has changed, and the defense has been what they have to hang their hat on. It's not like they have a choice, but 4 games now, Anthony Davis just carrying them, 34 points per game, 14 rebounds, but 5 turnovers to 3 assists per game. And you introduce now D'Angelo Russell, who some are not that fond of. Some have called, not me, but some have called the worst two-way player who gets consistent minutes in the NBA.
Name names.
Yeah. It's, what, Simmons' buddy.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah, right. Russillo,
thank you. But yeah, his last 3 against Toronto have not been great. 15 points per game, 32% field goal shooting. And AD, while he hasn't played them in a couple seasons, when he was at his prime, 6 games against Toronto, scoring under 20 a game, under 40% shooting, and again, a poor rating. Now, at this iteration of Toronto, they have even more options to throw at him in terms of Scotty Barnes and Jakob Poeltl. There's a lot of length and defense on this team. And really, I come back to the fact that those 2 guys who are the primary options for the Lakers are a bit turnover prone. And right now, since they've lost Bron, right, they're giving up. They're near the worst in the league in terms of giving points off turnovers and giving up fast break points. And as we know, that's what Toronto needs to survive.
Yep.
That's what they need to thrive. They're coming off these 2 frustrating wins where they looked like they were going to end Denver's home win streak. And then Scotty Barnes got tossed by Scott Foster himself. And then, according to one man's opinion, that being Fred VanVleet, Ben Taylor and the ref crew were screwing them at the Clippers. I think really they just got beat by a Clippers team that's starting to round back into form. Here, the Lakers, I'm not willing to just say that like they're a contender at this point. AD has had transcendent performances to carry them to a few wins here. They've still gone way under. They've gone under in 7 of their last 8 with him active. They've gone under in 6 straight at home with a 107 defensive rating. And there's nothing to really indicate with Toronto that you'll get a ton of points, except for the fact that when they've beaten the Lakers in 3 of the last 4 here, 3 of those games have gone over. Sort of an abnormal lift in terms of free throws for Toronto. in scoring, but two of those games, recent meetings, were played at the blazing pace that the Russell Westbrook and LeBron Lakers brought to the table. Still, one of those, the last one in LA at Crypto, only got to a 217 total, despite being a 101.5 pace. And right now in their last four, the Raptors are 28th in pace at just like 94. Yeah. So I mean, a poor half court offense. It's a Lakers offense that I don't think is really on track yet. It's just a lot of throwing it into Anthony Davis and hoping for the best. And look, if he's not transcendent, I don't think they're going to be scoring that much, and I don't think they're necessarily going to be able to pull out this win against a Toronto team that's pretty fired up, I think, about the way the last two games finished.
Yeah, I mean, I'm happy to tell everybody what the quote was because I think it's one of the greatest quotes in post-game history. Fred VanVleet gets on the mic, and shame on the media members who asked the question, Fred, what did you think of the refereeing tonight? And it's like, I mean, not shame on you. You're getting a good quote, but I'm just saying, it's what you're getting. You're either going to get the quote to fine him or you're not. And Fred goes, I'll take the fine. He was effing terrible tonight, and he didn't say effing. And yeah, I think I'm look, Scott Foster, all that. I'm not even necessarily going to get into it. I do believe in the feistiness of the Raptors, everything about them, and the way that they embody Nick Nurse, the things that they're good at, the way that the style that they play is dogged, if you will. So I mean, yeah, I love the idea of them having extra momentum and motivation to come out and win this game, and that's what I would do. +1, whatever, just take the money line and get those basically even odds for them to win this game. The 224.5, like I would lean under for sure. Like you're saying, that's where I would lean. I wish it was a little higher, just like a few points. I'm not saying tease it, maybe tease it. I don't know. You kind of have me on that one. This is another example of like I kind of like the tease just because the 224 is fair, as Mo would say. And so if I can gain a little bit of advantage by shifting that line, like it seems worth it because of how close of a game I think this is going to be anyway. I think there's some fun bets. Like I said, we're recording this on Thursday night, so I don't have available to me things that I might like to look at, like the Raptors to win by 1 to 5 points, or taking that as well as the Lakers to win by 1 to 5 points and keeping this thing close. And then I'm both of those bets would get me enough plus money that you think this game's going to be pretty close in that sense. I do think AD is going to eat. I know he's got some bad numbers, and we'll talk about this more in our player props video for Friday, but like his bad numbers against the Raptors come at a different time on different teams with different styles in situations that didn't include with and without LeBron James playing. And when LeBron's not playing this season, especially in these last 5 that he has been out since that injury against the Mavis, AD's just going nuts. Like even if he's only got 5 rebounds in one game, he's got 39 points. If he's only got 3 rebounds in the other game, he's got 38 points. So I feel really good about him being able to get also 22 boards the other night in another game, right? So like I think there's plenty of reason to feel good about him still getting his. The Raptors cannot stop centers. They got Pirtle to be able to do better around the rim, and like he has to a degree, except for that opposing centers are still scoring the second most points against the Raptors in the exact amount of time since Pirtle's been there. So do with that what you will, because they were actually better at guarding that position before he got there. I still argue that he's made them a better team, so I'm not trying to say that at all. But I do think it's still a good position for the Lakers to lose here because of the stats that matter, as we talk about, versus the Raptors. Since LeBron went down in these last 5, the Lakers are the only thing they're not doing that they should be doing better at is guarding the fast break there. That's the only thing that they're actually like not awful at in their last 4, but the Raptors aren't really scoring from the fast break in their last 4 that they've been on the road. Interestingly enough, like that's not where they're getting their points from. They are getting them off turnovers. They swarm you, still getting the second most in the league off of turnovers, still getting in the top 5, 4th most second chance points as they played these last 4 games on the road as well. And then points in the paint, not necessarily their forte, but they have been still scoring the 7th most, the highest percentage of their points off of 2-pointers. Like point being, they're still not going to shoot threes, and that's not going to be, and that's a place that the Lakers have actually been pretty good on defense, as we know, since they've gotten that help on the wing since the trade deadline. and a little bit before with Rui. So, that's not where the Raptors really worry about getting points from. I think that helps them in this game. Like everything that they want to do, I think they can do. Obviously, second chance points is something that the Lakers are limiting pretty well because AD is just eating up every single defensive rebound. And I think that'll continue to be the case, even though I know there's a ton of guys crashing the boards. I'm not worried about dudes 6'7" and shorter crashing the boards on 6'11" AD as he's going up and getting those rebounds. And really, he's over 7 feet tall now. So, anyway, I like what he's going to be able to do with these rebounds and points. One of the two or both of them are going to get him over what I think his prop is going to be tonight. But I still think the Raptors are in a good situation with a pretty pissed off nature that's going to lead them to be able to win the game.
Yeah, the one thing of concern, though, is that the free throw discrepancy, that the Raptors do not get to the line at all recently, and that they're also giving up the fourth highest free throw rate. And that's where the Lakers are scoring the highest percentage of their points since losing Bron. That's where AD thrives. But, when these teams get together, those numbers kind of look different, that the Raptors get 9 more free throw attempts than we're talking about right now, that they actually out-rebound the Lakers, that that's how they've been able to beat them in 3 of the last 4. It's kind of like a Hollywood versus Slumwood or whatever. Yeah. I don't know, whatever chip on their shoulder they have up in Toronto. They've the North, and Hollywood is certainly not. And they come to play against this team, and with the identity of Van Fleet and Scotty Barnes bringing his lunch pail in 3 against the Lakers, 22 points, 14 rebounds. I think he's going to be a factor as well. After a really nice game against the Clips. No travel involved, by the way, as they just play another game here in LA. So, yeah, I'm leaning Raptors. Let's make producer Dan happy and get them the win here on Friday night.
It's so weird that this is like a grit and grind team when Toronto's like this beautiful, wildly clean metropolitan area in Canada. But like this is like a dirty, nasty, get after it team that like gets hustle points because they also have one of the worst, if not the worst, half court offense in the league, right? Which doesn't really matter because they're going to try to get out and go. And I think they'll be able to get some of those fast break points, enough to at least like get the win. But it will be kind of gross. There's not going to be much offensive flow either to the Lakers, who are also kind of getting those gross points. They're still really not hitting threes, even with the addition of Malik Beasley. We know D'Lo's been out. Maybe he gets a little bit warmer from 3 to, in this game on Friday night against the Lake Show, but I really don't see it. So like, I would still tease maybe an under with the Raps in this one. They can lose by 3 or they can lose by 5 points, and this game can go under 229. Like, I actually feel really good about it, and I would, I'll go ahead and suggest it at this point. So, Nate, let's jump into your first NBA play-up prop for tonight. Our guy, Dame Lillard, taking on those Sixers.
Yeah, it seems like a matchup where Dame's going to continue to eat, and he probably will. I mean, as we all know, he's been lighting the league on fire. 38 points per game on a 40% usage rate in his last 11 here. The thing is, I want the juice on his turnovers. 3.5, over 3.5 is plus 130. This is something he's hit in 4 of his last 5, and he's averaging 4.1 turnovers to 7 assists in these last 11. It's because teams are starting to load up on him completely. I won't say start, but they're completely loading up on him. Really, since his 71-point explosion, they're saying we're not even going to let him shoot from 3. I mean, he's just under 10 3-point attempts per game, hitting 3.5, around 30% though in his last 6 here, and getting to the line a lot because teams are forcing him to go inside, and that's when that happens. You're talking about turnovers. You're talking about guys taking charges. You're talking about having to kick it out or getting stripped down in the paint, rather than being able to hoist threes. Philly, despite some inconsistent defense, they're still 9th in opponents' turnover rate. They have the 5th most steals per game, 7th in assist to turnover ratio, and they've guarded Dame this way. He scored 33 a game, high usage rate, but 5 turnovers per game, including 6 earlier this season when they matched up. So, I like the odds. If you like potentially good payouts, you'll probably follow that. But if you think that this is a joy-stealing bet, then sure, over 32.5 points, I do think he gets there because Philly does not guard point guards at all. And he can light them up for sure. As we do hope that happens if we're taking the over here at 229.
No, I think the turnovers is the sharper bet, to be honest. I mean, you get the juice there, and the 32.5 is so freaking high. And 4 assists for a guy with a usage rate as wildly high as Dame is not a silly thing. Not only the usage rate, but like if you want to go to some serious like cleaning the glass, and per index kind of how often is he dribbling the ball and how often is the ball in his hands per percentage of these possessions that they have for the Blazers. Like it's going to be in the 80s to 90s that the ball is in his hands at whatever point of the possession they've got the ball. So the likelihood of the turnovers goes up. I will say, Sneaky Nate, like we put our notes in these in here and talk about what we want to put down, and you jumped on Dame, and even before you started putting stats in there, you're like, I'm for sure taking Dame, so like just don't even touch it. And I was like, that's fine. Like, but we were both on the same plane there with him. Like Philly against one of the top 3 best scoring point guards in the league, top 2 with Steph probably right now as far as pure point guards go. So yeah, I think the points is still fine here because we do like some points in this one, and we said it multiple times in the game video. Dame could go for 35, and Philly or Portland could score like 104 points, and that still wouldn't surprise us, which scares us a little bit, even though we like the over. But we love Philly's over and we love Dame's over. That's really what we're saying about this game, right? So I'm gonna go ahead and talk about one that's a little bit mixed here, and maybe I should just start with MPJ, which spoiler is my other prop, but I'll just go ahead and talk about AD here because 42.5 points and rebounds for him. It's stupid high. Like that's high for most people's points, rebounds, and assists, right? Joker gets like 45, 46 at this number with the assists in there. So this is dumb high. I get that. It's minus 110 on DraftKings. His last 5, which were all without LeBron, 33 a game and 14 boards. That's in 36 minutes. He's going 9 for 11 from the free throw line and 56% from the field. Toronto, not a great, defensive rebounding team. Pretty good offensive rebounding team, but like not with AD in my opinion. So I think, in the 13 games without LeBron this season, 30 points a game, 15 boards a game in all 13 of those versus the 25 and 11 that he's putting up when LeBron plays this season. Like I mentioned also in the game video, Jakob Poeltl, my guy, would never mean to slander him, but like even though he's been there for 7 games or 8 games, whatever it is, in the last 7, he's allowing this team is allowing the second most points per game to centers at like 27 a game. And then as far as boards, it's like 16 boards to opposing centers as well. AD is going to get like 36 minutes in this game, right? Where his per 36 numbers are well above, I say like 4 above this points and rebound total that he's at right now. The centers that have been getting everything on this team are all good. It's Kristaps, Joker, Vooch, Zubac. That's who's been scoring against Poeltl. He's been playing really good centers, but like AD is as good as all of them, well, better than 3 of them, and I'm not putting him next to Joker. I don't want to get into that. But also the Raps are allowing the 10th most rebounds per game in their last 7. And like I said, they're not the best defensive rebounding team at all by any means, but they're also just like, they're playing at a pace that's not necessarily fast, but they're getting lots of shots up. And they are getting second chance points, or they're getting offensive rebounds, and sometimes missing those second chance points, which gives you more rebounds available for everybody around, right? There's just a lot of rebounds to go around in these Raptors games. So I think you could see another 15, 16 rebound game from this dude. And I think you got to put him on there for like 27, 28 points as well.
Yeah, the rebounds, there's some good logic there, I think, but the props are all just so high. Yeah, to take 14 rebounds at minus 125, and you scroll down the list, anything that for AD is ridiculously bad odds, except for him to hit 1-3, by the way, or get the first field goal of the game, which isn't terrible. Plus 500 at FanDuel. Hey, happy first day of online betting in Massachusetts. You want to take a no-risk bet on that there, plus 500. Sure, go for it. I'm a little skeptical about Toronto being able to slow him down, but even slowing him down, he's still probably going to hover around 40 points of rebounds here. So it's a competitive line for sure.
It is.
But I'm going to go back to another guy on seeing a sky-high usage rate. Bradley Beal seems to be back to full health. In his last 12, scoring 26 points with a 34% usage rate, and that's usage has gone up in the 2 matchups with Atlanta, including 37 points on 40% usage. And then just 2 nights ago, 24 points, 34% usage. He's actually hit at least 24 in 12 straight against Atlanta, averaging 30 a game, 32.5% usage. That's where his prop is at tonight, 24.5. Not great juice on the over. once again, they're offering great juice for him to hit 2 threes because he just doesn't take that many. He's 0 for 7 from 3 in his last 2 home games, but his previous 6, he was really cooking. 15 threes on 33 attempts. That's 45%. So he's definitely shown the ability to step out and hit. Now DeLon Wright in the starting lineup more for Washington. He's more of a setup guy, getting Beal those looks. And look, so Atlanta, they're better offensively, it seems, with Quinn Snyder at the helm, but worse defensively. And in those 7 games since he's taken over, they're giving up the 4th most points, 3rd most assists to shooting guards. I think Beal has a nice night here in terms of points and assists, but I would stick with the points and maybe the threes.
Yeah, I mean, Quinn Snyder is bringing his same Utah style. Like, it's almost as though he didn't have a defensive game plan other than throw Rudy Gobert out there for 36 minutes a game and then, have really good guards. He's been really good for his guards. I don't like this game. I don't like having to figure out which of these players is going to score. Kristaps is coming off a 43-point night. Maybe you like that. But like, I don't want to talk about that game and the Wizards. And I just don't want to talk about any of those teams in the play-in for the East, right? Like 7 through 12, like, ugh, just gross. But sometimes you got to do what you got to do. And Brad Beal has been... Yeah, Sans Halliburton, but I think they're like 13th right now. Either way, I'm going to finish off with the one I actually feel way more confident about. Like I said, Michael Porter Jr. in a matchup against those San Antonio Spurs, who, by the way, have not been awful on defense necessarily. Well, they've been bad, but their opponent field goal percentage not that bad over their last like 5. But this is a good matchup for Michael Porter Jr. 16.5 points is low, I think, for this one. -120 on DK as we're recording this on Thursday. It's the best I could find for you guys using that odds finder tool on thelines.com. The points and rebounds I also love at 21.5, -115 on DraftKings there. In 2 games versus San Antonio this season, 20 points a game, 7.5 boards, 30 minutes a game, which not very high, but about 30 minutes a game in those 2 versus them. 3 threes a game on 43% in those 2, making like 7 in one game, 5 in the other, whatever. Last 5 games overall, he's at 21 points a game, which is basically his points and rebounds prop. So do what you will. Also add the 6.5 rebounds, and he hasn't even played 30 minutes. He hasn't been averaging. It's like 29.4 minutes a game in those last 5. So he's had a great usage rate, 23%, despite all the weapons on the floor. 128 individual offensive rating in those last 5. And then incredible splits, 58% from the field, 44% from deep, making 3 threes a game on just like 7.5 attempts. Another like 44% from deep in those last 5. It's dunks or threes for the dude. And if he's hitting 3 threes in the game and he gets a few dunks, the 17 points feels pretty easy. San Antonio allowing the most points per game to SFs, small forwards, over the last 7 games. Haven't been that bad in the past, but yeah, I mean, also Malachi Branham is out. Keldon Johnson will be in this game, not necessarily that helpful on defense against this position. And they haven't, they're just awful on defense everywhere. Like, right, the only thing that they've been decent at is not giving up that many free throws. Michael Porter Jr. averages 2 a game because, like I said, all he does is go to the rim and dunk or get those 3-pointers. So I think it's a good opportunity. It's too low of a prop in a game that's a good matchup for him.
Yeah, I don't think there's as much risk of a blowout too with Denver on the road. They just tend to be much more competitive on both sides of the ball, or allow the other team to be more competitive. But I mean, San Antonio is literally not trying to win games, so this is going to be just like warm up shooting for MPJ, who's just a lights out. 43%, like you said, against this team. I think he will be higher than 40% from 3, and so I would look at his 3-pointer props. It's not great odds for him to hit 3, but maybe you want him to hit 4 threes in this game, which he's certainly capable of doing.
Definitely. Yeah, I mean, go crazy with it if you want. I blowout or not, he'll be in for his requisite 30 minutes. That's kind of what he's getting because one leg is longer than the other, so he's prone to injury. But I think it's a good opportunity for him to get those 17 tonight. So that is all the time we have for you guys in this one. So make sure to like and subscribe to that page. Looking to stay wicked hot on those play-up props after a really good Thursday night with you guys. And so we see you next. Happy betting.